The news cycle keeps getting crazier and crazier. We've got a president that was almost assassinated. We've got one that, potentially looks like he's missing, that there's a coup going on within the Democrat Party. You've got Hollywood and Obama on one side. You've got the Clintons fighting on the backside. To help me go through all this, I have Brandon Straka with me. Brandon, thank you for joining me.
Wait, am I expected to unravel all of this? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and in
That's
30 minutes.
Perfect. I can do it. I'm the guy for the job.
Yeah.
No, good to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Last time you were with us, things were just starting to calm down with the FBI trying to make you one of the poster boys for January 6th, even though you have tons of video evidence that you did not do anything, you did not damage anything. I'd like to get an update on that later in the show, but wanted to get your thoughts. Why do you think Biden ultimately stepped down? I've read his health. I've read new polling data came out in Michigan. I've read that, Obama and the Pelosi's told him, you've got to step down. I'm just trying to figure out if he stepped down on his own, if this is a coordinated coup against a sitting president, because in the last couple weeks, he kept saying things like, the elites are trying to push me out. The people want me, but the elites are making decisions. Any thoughts on why he stepped down?
Yeah, I think it was a pressure campaign that came from within. I believe that it was probably a combination of he and Jill were highly incentivized, I'm sure, both financially and through offers of perhaps pardoning Hunter and maybe even immunity for other things that we haven't even begun to find out about. And I think that he didn't want to resign. I mean, I don't think this is not happening willingly. Like, he didn't wake up one day and have a change of heart and say, you know what, I think for the good of my country, I'm not, the best person for the job. I assure you that did not happen. But I do think that he was highly pressured. I think he was probably, there were some threats, and I think there were definitely some incentives offered.
Okay, interesting. I mean, they could have been incentives such as, hey, once you get out, you'll be paid $400,000 or $500,000 for a speech. That's a year's worth of presidential money. It could also be, if you try to pardon yourself or your son, we'll make your life a living hell. It could be both sides. But either way, I'm sure that, we know that there was a pressure campaign. We know that the Obamas teamed up with big names in Hollywood to come out and attack him after the debate, such as George Clooney, Michael Douglas, others that finally said, listen, I can't stand silent anymore. But then we learned that, Barack Obama knew that these hit pieces were going to be coming out. Pelosi sat him down. Chuck Schumer sat him down. The only one that was essentially telling him to stay in the race was, my understanding anyway, was Hillary Clinton and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They were saying, you've got 14 million votes. We've got plenty of money to back you. Don't bow down to the pressure. And then all the pressure from Obama and Hollywood.
Yeah. So here's the thing. He made it very clear that he had no intention of dropping out. He didn't want to leave. And he had this really horrible debate performance. But then as soon as literally the next day after the debate performance, he came out, he was all fired up, and then all of a sudden the media machinery to some degree started to kind of back off a little bit. I mean, there was a lot of people saying, should he drop out? Should he drop out? But when he made it very clear he didn't want to, for a while there, they kind of got back in this game of like, okay, he had a bad night. It was a bad performance, but he's doing great. He's out there. He's on fire. So again, I say, I don't believe that in any way, shape, or form, this is a decision that he came to on his own. I think that there must have been intense pressure behind the scenes, because it seemed like even the media was willing to stand behind him when he had made the decision that he was not going to be bullied or pushed out. Something ultimately twisted his arm.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Or someone.
Right.
When the announcement first came out, Daily Mail, Breitbart News, Fox, they all picked it up that he was going to finish out his term but that he would drop out of the election portion of running for president. And then he did not initially endorse Kamala Harris. Then all of a sudden, this next round of tweets comes out that he does endorse her, that she's the best one. Like, it really makes me wonder, like, who's running his Twitter campaign? Was this something they forgot, or did they see pushback for 30 minutes to an hour and they're like, oh crap, he's got to endorse her or else we're going to be eaten alive? Like, it just seems so weird that he would say, I'm dropping out and I'm not going to endorse Kamala Harris. And then like 30 minutes later, of course I'm endorsing her. It's just very strange.
All of it is very strange. You know, I think it's been made perfectly clear that if they tried to somehow get Kamala out and install a new candidate, it's going to have catastrophic results with their base, particularly the Black community, who obviously is going to be able to see very clearly the message that's being sent from something like that. But then on the other hand, the Obamas put out a statement recently that was a little bit mysterious, saying something along the lines of that they hope that a process is implemented in which the best candidate can be selected. So the Obamas stopped short of endorsing Kamala and haven't, and are almost indicating that they would support a process of selecting a new candidate.
Yeah. Well, we all know that Barack Obama did not endorse Joe Biden to run for president. Now Obama's not endorsing Joe Biden's vice president. So it's all very strange. It does seem like there's this war going on within the Democrat Party. I mean, you had people like Adam Schiff saying, if we don't elect Biden, a truth teller who is good for the country, we're going to lose democracy. Next thing he's saying, we got to get this guy out of office or else the Democrat Party's going to fall apart. Like, so which is it? To me, as an outsider, it seems like the moderates and the progressives are kind of tearing apart. And whether Joe Biden should have stayed on or not is kind of tearing them apart. But then again, you interact with a lot more Democrats than I do.
Yeah, but I mean, I think in a way, if you look at it, I mean, we went through something similar. I don't know how you align politically, but I'm a Republican at this point. I'd say an America First Republican. So, in my party, we've gone through something similar in the last couple of years, where there's been sort of this almost internal civil war as the party's been struggled away from rhinos and has become the party really of Donald Trump and the MAGA movement. But what the Democrats are going through is very different because it's fundamentally dishonest. And I mean, it's very, very deceptive. I mean, as you and I sit here and speak right now at this moment, I don't even know if Joe Biden's alive or not, to be really honest with you. And my gut is telling me that the situation could be very bad, actually. But they don't really make decisions based on from a place of, I think, honesty and what's best for the country and what's best for the party. It seems to me that the Democrats are very much controlled, and that there are basically internal memos that go out to say, this is our messaging for the day. This is what we believe right now. Today, we're behind Biden. Tomorrow, we're not. I don't think that they know themselves what the hell is going on right now with their party. But it's as interesting and theatrical as all of this is, and kind of like fascinating to watch it all unfold, I also find it really kind of disturbing and frightening. And I also find it creepy. I mean, we haven't heard from the president of the United States in 4 or 5 days. And he announced his resignation in a tweet. And nobody has heard from him or seen him. I mean, it's something weird is going on. And this party, I think, is it's disturbing, I think, the way that this party is operating.
Yeah. Let me give just a little bit of background, because my analytics tell me that the majority of my viewers are over the age of 55. So they're probably not on Twitter. But basically, people are now starting to dig in, and they're realizing, wait a minute, the president of the United States of America dropped out of the presidential race via a tweet. Very strange. It's now come out. His own staff and his own re-election staff did not know he was stepping down until they saw the tweet. So whoever's running his social media campaign, we know it's not him. They make this announcement. Then people, these sleuths start digging in. They realize, wait a minute, this dropout letter is not on official letterhead, and the signature, Joe Biden's signature, doesn't match. And then it turns out one of his office staff has made this announcement on his behalf. He doesn't say anything. He's gone missing. And now you have people like Charlie Kirk, who's highly credible, and Laura Loomer, who's highly credible, saying they're being told that there was a medical emergency in Las Vegas and he was flown back east. Well, we were told he had COVID and they flew him back east, but now nobody's seeing him. So why doesn't the White House just come out and dispel these rumors? Why would they allow? I mean, you've got members of Congress on Twitter saying, we don't know where the president is. There's no sign of him. Did he step down? Is this a coup? Is the government being taken over? And so anyway, I wanted to give that background, but it is very strange, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it's beyond strange. I mean, all of this is extraordinarily strange. And look, even if like best case scenario, I would say in this situation is that he's extremely ill right now and that he's being surrounded by people who are saying, Mr. President, it's imperative that you drop out immediately today, right now. And Mr. President, it's imperative that you give us permission to make this statement on your behalf. We understand that you can't speak right now. You can't do a press conference. You can't whatever, but we're going to use your social media accounts. And so we just need you to give us the authority to do that. I mean, that's the best case scenario. So the best case scenario is they have an extremely ill person who's probably not in their right mind or strong enough to really make decisions like that on their own. And they're taking advantage of the fact that they're just going to make this announcement on his behalf and coerce his permission to whatever degree. And then the other scenarios behind that, I think, are much, much darker, that there are much darker reasons why he's not able to make this announcement himself.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange. I don't wish ill on him, just like I hated when people were wishing ill on Donald Trump after he got shot at, Speaking of Trump, wanted to get your reaction. So, President Trump, former President Trump, sits down with Fox News alongside J.D. Vance, his new vice presidential pick. And they asked him a question about Biden's health. And President Trump says that he wants an investigation into who's been covering up his mental decline and that this should be exposed. And then J.D. Vance says, if he's not capable of running for president, he's not capable of being president. He needs to step down or be removed. What are your thoughts on their two comments?
Well, 100%. We, the American people, deserve answers about what's going on behind the scenes. And we need to know, is he still with us? What is the current state of his health? Does he intend to return to office? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Would he not finish his presidency? I could certainly see pressure being put on him in that direction too, because I would imagine that the same Democrat machinery that now is going to suddenly start gaslighting us and telling us that Kamala Harris is the most intelligent, qualified, prepared, and beautiful woman that we've ever seen, and that that to not support her, get behind her, would be the craziest thing we can imagine because she's so amazing. But I think that it would benefit them to some degree to allow her to have a few months to actually get behind the controls, and then again tell us all what a great job she's doing and what an amazing president that she is, and that we need to allow her to continue down this road. I don't know, because I don't even know what's going on with this man right now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, if he's alive and if he recovers, I would imagine he's going to want to finish his term. But again, he wanted to continue to run, and he wanted to run for a second term. and they found a way to push him out. So I think if the question is, do I imagine they're going to try to push him out of finishing his term? Yes, I think that they will. Will he? I don't know, because I don't even know if he's alive. But if he is alive, I would imagine he's going to want to finish his term. But there will be a bullying campaign to push him out.
Yeah. So
it's such a weird interview, right?
I know it is, because like there's just so much mystery around it, and not because of you and me, but because of the White House. Like this group has been covering for him for 3.5 years, which brings me to my next question. Is Kamala Harris is now going to have to debate Donald Trump if she gets the nomination, right? She's going to have to debate Donald Trump. And I see two major issues that she's going to have. Number one, he should, and I think he will, he needs to point out that she was front row part of one of the biggest cover-ups in American history. A president with dementia, mentally incapable, didn't have the energy, didn't have the focus of running this country. She has played a major part in covering this up, and the American people are going to learn that. Number two, she was specifically put in charge of the border. The United States of America has been invaded by 10 million plus foreigners that should not be here. And then you compare that to Donald Trump's track record. I see those as being two major issues that she's going to have to overcome. Your thoughts on that? And is there another one that maybe you have on your mind?
Yeah, well, 100% the border, I think, is if not the absolute top issue for people, it's in the top 2, top 3 issues for people. And I think everybody recognizes that the Biden administration has completely put our country in jeopardy. 9 million, 10, 11 million people cross the border in the last 3.5 years, illegally, people that we don't know who they are. And that she absolutely was an integral part of allowing this catastrophe to take place. But I think in addition to that, he's really going to be able to, and I hope he would go after her about her record as a prosecutor and the really egregious ways in which she single-handedly is responsible for putting countless Black men in prison, separating Black families, and really furthering the prison industrial complex in the state of California. But I mean, she has a hideous record of incarcerating Black people, Black men, and including Tulsi Gabbard called her out in the presidential debate years ago, saying that she intentionally withheld evidence that would have exonerated a man on death row. And that happened, I think, at least once. So I would hope that he would go after that as well, because, the one card that they, I think, are going to try to play, and the number one reason why they really can't replace her is because of the message that sends to racial minorities in this country and women. But if that's the reason why she's there, then we need to talk about what she has done to the Black community, to racial minorities in this country when she had that power as a prosecutor.
Yeah. I know that there is evidence, and I'm sure more evidence will come out, that she actually extended the time in jail for Black men so that the jails could continue to use them for cheap labor. Yeah, there's a lot of evidence on that, and my guess is more and more will come out. It'll be really interesting to see her debate Donald Trump, because he is just a prolific debater and not afraid to call people out. You're the head of the walkaway. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, could I ask you if you think he'll do it? Do you think that Trump will follow through with the debates now that it's switched?
Not until she's officially made the nominee. He had a really good burn at the RNC when we thought Biden was healthy and still running. They said, when is JD Vance going to debate Kamala? And he said, we're not committing to anything until Kamala Harris picks her vice president. And and then they all laughed, and then now he has stepped away. And so she is going to have to win that nomination and then name somebody And then from there, yes, I think JD Vance and Donald Trump would love the opportunity to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million Americans watch him just absolutely put out all of the things that she has done over her career to hurt the United States and American citizens. I think he looks forward to the opportunity.
I would hope so, and I hope he does. Donald Trump will throw you a curveball now and then, and just say like, "Look, I'm not showing up for any primary debates, or I'm not going to." It was, I think, different when it was Biden, but I agree that I certainly hope he does debate her. I think he should debate her, but Trump being Trump, I could also see him saying, nah, "I'm not even going to bother debating her. What's the point?"
Yeah, yeah. So I mentioned earlier, you talk to a lot more Democrats than I do. You're the head of the walkaway movement. You used to be a Democrat. Your eyes were opened. You've now been helping educate people all over the country about the party and their background. When you go around asking Democrats why they stay in the party, what is, maybe one of the top one or two reasons that they say they like being a Democrat or will continue to be a Democrat?
That they still believe that their rights are in danger, and that the Democratic Party is protecting women's rights, LGBT rights, and racial minority rights, and that they've thoroughly bought into the threat to democracy, and of course the threat of Donald Trump. It's the main reason Democrats are so motivated to vote now and get involved is because of their pathological hatred of Donald Trump. But their pathological hatred of Donald Trump, under that umbrella, is the fear that women's rights, LGBT, black rights, etc., are going to be taken away because they think Donald Trump and his supporters are racist, fascistic, xenophobic, things like that. They really buy into everything that they're told by CNN, MSNBC, etc. So it's where every once in a blue moon, I will come across a Democrat who will tell me, I don't believe what the media says about Trump, and I know Trump's not a racist or whatever, but I don't like his policies on this or that, or I don't like that he gives tax cuts to the rich, and I'm like, okay, I'm down with you. Like, this is cool. Like, we can actually have a conversation like this. Like, you actually have an opinion rooted in just your belief that his policies aren't good. I can hang with that. That's cool. But that's a needle in a haystack. I mean, the vast majority of the time, they're just screaming, Russian collusion, threat to democracy, January 6th, racism, sexism, my right to my abortion, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. It's interesting because, people say that Donald Trump was the biggest middle finger that Republicans could send to Washington, D.C., right? Just that personality that would get in their face. And he has made a lot of people angry. But then, I read in the data that 25% of Democrats only vote to protect abortion. You now have the person who got Roe v. Wade, moved from the federal back to the states. Do you think that there's enough energy there for that to be the main issue that Democrats could potentially win on? Or do you think a lot of them are like, well, abortion is, a woman's right and a woman's choice, but we're being invaded and life is becoming expensive and unbearable, and I don't feel safe with all of these wars. Is abortion strong enough to overcome the kitchen table issues?
Right. I'd really like to believe that it is, and I do think that for some Democrats it is, but then you have to keep in mind who and what the demographic is that's voting, because if you've got middle class or upper middle class suburban white women who this issue seems to resonate with the most, or who are making the most noise about it, I think many of them are not as concerned about the kitchen table issues as everybody else, or at least not enough that it's, just like in 2020, when we were in the middle of a pandemic and everything else, but you had suburban white women saying that they were going to vote for Joe Biden because of Black Lives Matter. And you're thinking to yourself, this is the most important issue in your life right now. What happened to George Floyd, when you're like in the middle of a pandemic and they're trying to force vaccines on your children and things like that. But I think there's always going to be that demographic for whom the economy, the grocery prices, the gas prices are just not hitting them hard enough. And so for them, they're like, I'm going to use my vote to ensure that women can get an abortion up until the ninth month, or that it's not even about that it's about, the mythology that this is about controlling women's bodies. I'm going to use my vote to make sure that no man ever controls a woman's body. I do think that that's out there. Now, I think I guess the question then becomes, what is the percentage of people who are not in a luxurious enough position at this point that can't be a thing, that you actually have to ask yourself, can I afford to live? Can I afford to pay for everything I need to pay for so that my kids can have a good life? And am I going to be able to send my kids out into the world someday, with some kind of nest egg to get them started in life? Or, they say now it's almost a hopeless situation that a young person could ever own their own home. I mean, what kind of an America is that for people to leave to their kids? And I would hope that at this point that these questions are larger and more important than the fear mongering about abortion or trans rights or, the police brutality against Black people, or, whatever it is that they're trying to fear monger about at this point. But there's always going to be that sect of kind of social justice warrior Karens out there in suburbia who are casting their vote solely based on social issues.
Okay. In our final minutes together, what were your thoughts when the Supreme Court made this ruling that would change a lot of January 6th people's, I don't know what the right word is, prison sentence or the charges against them? What was on their record? And then just give us a brief update on where you're at with your situation.
Sure. So, it's going to have a large impact on a lot of people's cases. I think it remains to be seen how positive this is. One good example is my friend John Strand. A lot of people know his case. If not, you should look it up. He was there acting as a bodyguard to a speaker that day. Both of them got swept inside the building. They spent about 45 minutes trying to find a way out and finally did, and then left. Didn't hurt anyone, didn't touch anybody, didn't break anything, no vandalism, no violence. But they were caught on camera, and the person he was protecting, it was actually Dr. Simone Gold's, a pretty recognizable person. She ended up taking a plea deal of a misdemeanor and got 2 months prison sentence, but he refused to take a plea deal. So they took him to trial on 4 misdemeanors and the 1512 felony, which was just the Supreme Court just addressed. He was given an almost surprise. He was found guilty on all counts by a DC judge and jury, and was sentenced to almost 3 years in prison on these charges. He's now going to be released this Wednesday, in a few days, because of 1512. So that's an example of a happy ending in some of these cases. But what it doesn't really take back, first of all, is that he had to go through this in the first place and that he did spend an entire year in prison. But second of all, even the people who took plea deals, from myself to anyone else, this 1512 charge was used as a threat against everybody. Essentially, if you can either take a plea deal, plead guilty to a misdemeanor, or you can go to trial. Now, I was charged with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor and threatened with 1512, which would have been 3 felonies, and ultimately was offered a Class B misdemeanor plea deal, which I took. But my point is, you can't go back at this point and undo that kind of damage that's been done when something like this, when somebody comes to you and says, just one of the charges we're going to level against you carries up to 20 years in prison, and it's another felony that's going to be added to your record, making you a convicted felon. Where things stand today for me, I now have 6 months left of probation to serve out. So I spent about 3 days in jail, and then I was given 3 months of house arrest. 3 years of federal probation, and then community service and fines and fees and things like that. So I've served every element of my service, of my sentence, with the exception of the remainder of my probation, which expires on January 24th of this coming year, 2025. As long as the government doesn't pull any new tricks between now and then, I should get off of probation, and that should be the end of it. There's nothing that I think that they're not capable of, so I will kind of hold my breath between now and then to see if something else is coming, and then have to deal with that when the time comes. But in the last 3.5 years, I was civilly sued by 8 Capitol police officers under the KKK Act that went on for 2.5 years. And cost over about $150,000 to get through. I did ultimately end up prevailing in that case, but I mean, I'm still out the money, and I'm out the anguish and the time and everything I went through. The criminal case, I just gave you that update. I was subpoenaed by the January 6th committee, had to spend another $30,000 going through depositions and discovery with them. And in the end, I took a misdemeanor plea deal in which the government wrote my confession, and that confession says that I essentially encouraged the crowd to take a shield from an officer, encouraged the crowd to go inside the building, all these different things. And for anybody who's ever seen my video that the government based my case off of, I think a lot of people feel like the video evidence does not match the story that the government created. And just to remind your audience, I never even entered the Capitol on January 6th. I was outside. I stood outside on the East Side grounds for 8 minutes shooting that video, and then I uploaded it to Twitter. And then 2.5 weeks later, I was raided by the FBI, who claimed that I encouraged the crowd to take a shield from an officer and go in the building and blah, 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 blah.
Oh, I don't think most people realize when you go up against the government, like there is no real win. You don't ever really beat the government because they have a bottomless budget to sue you.
Right.
And they can threaten you with jail. They can threaten. I mean, it's horrible. So I'm glad that you're hopefully through the worst of it. I hope you're planning a party in January to be, done with that. And,
well, I'm sorry, really quickly, could I add to your point just very quickly? You talked about the government's resources, which is absolutely valid. I mean, when you're a normal person going up against the government who can spend limitless millions of dollars to convict you and try you. But in addition to that, don't forget, they have the media as well. And since this was such a political case, so by the time you go to when they came and raided me and put me in jail, it became international headlines within 24 hours that I went to the Capitol and encouraged the mob to commit violence and encouraged the mob to do all of these things. So the whole world already believed that before I even learned what I was being accused of. I didn't even find out what I was being accused of until I got out of jail days later. But by then, the whole world believed that I had done those things. So it's like, so you're then going to go to trial in DC with a jury who's read all these stories and believes all this stuff. Like it's, this was all very well orchestrated to the point where like nobody had a choice but to take a plea deal. Unless you really were so virtuous that you were just like, I know I'm going to prison. Like my friend John, who knew he was going to prison, but decided to go to trial anyway because he refused to let them do this to him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for coming on. I know this was kind of a weird podcast only because, what is the White House doing? Just tell us. It's a
lot of speculation. I mean, that's all we've got right now.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, these darn Republicans just love to speculate. Let's give them something to speculate on today. It's like, what else are they going to throw at us? If people want to follow you or support you, keep in the loop, where can I push some traffic for them to follow you?
Sure. So I would highly encourage anyone to give me a follow on X and at Brandon. Yep, there's my name right there. That's my handle at Brandon Straka. And I want people to really keep a lookout too, because in the coming week or two, I'm going to be dropping figurative bomb on the internet. I'm putting out the sequel to my original walkaway video from 6 years ago, and that's going to be dropping in the next few weeks. It's going to be it's quite a video, trust me. So I really want everyone out there to share it. I mean, I know people think that we have free speech now on X and everything else, but I find that my account is still just as suppressed today as it was 3 or 4 years ago. So when the videos come out, you're going to see it on Facebook, X, YouTube, all over the place. Share. And then shortly after that, within the next couple of weeks, we're going to be launching officially the Walkaway $10,000 testimonial video challenge, in which we're going to be awarding $10,000 to the best walkaway video that we get between now and the end of the year, as well as other cash prizes and merch and things like that. And you'll find out all about that by following me on my socials. So just go ahead, give me a follow, and we've got some really exciting stuff coming.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.